You are listening to the Unsoberly Sober Show. I'm your host, Magnify Maggie. This podcast will turn your perception of going sober upside down. We're going to be working from the inside out to get you that dream life. So make sure you stick around for the end of the episode where I'm going to walk you through our weekly positive pursuit exercise to begin rewiring that beautiful mind, baby. Hello, my free and powerful friend. I hope you're believing that about yourself. I hope that you are feeling it in your bones, in your frequency, your vibe. Welcome back to this week's episode of Unsoberly Sober. And I'm just gonna shoot you straight here. This episode, you might need a box of tissues. I've got mine here. It's gonna be multi-purpose, but I've got mine here because this week's episode is not so light and fluffy. We're going to be digging deep. And this week's episode was inspired by a beautiful audience member, listener who reached out. And before I read what this lovely person wrote to me, I want to say that this message, it solidified why I'm doing what I'm doing. When I built Magnify, it wasn't for selfish reasons of, I want to be an influencer. I want to have this following of X many people. It was, I want to help at least one person who has been through the trenches like I had. And most specifically, I wanted to help that person that was like my mom. I've shared before that, like I said, I have my Kleenexes because I might cry. You might cry. We're all allowed to cry. We have tears coming. That's okay. But when it comes to my mission, I think about my mom and I think about some of the resentment that I had towards her that fueled my fire to be here today. My mom lost a son. I cannot ever imagine what that would feel like. But I know what it feels like to be the daughter of a woman who lost a son, who was so consumed by grief that she was unable to ever love herself again. And thus, she was really unable to show her love for me and my oldest brother, Jake. And I said, if I could impact just one mother or father who's going through that to the point that they are drinking and that they are incapable of loving themselves, of loving their life, of loving the ones around them, if I can impact them so that generational curses, children of alcoholics, this cycle of toxic patterns, if I could help end that for just one family system, then my job is done. This is the message that I got. I was searching for something to listen to that might help me. I searched, why can't I stop drinking and smoking grief? I always come up with something that's either about quitting drinking by itself or the stages of grief by itself, but never found anything that joined the two. Your alcohol and grief video podcast came up, and I listened to it and cried all the way to work. I have an hour drive. I lost my 16-year-old son to suicide 4.5 years ago, and I can't get better. I can't process it. I feel like I will never be okay. I don't know why I'm writing this. I guess just thank you for making that content. Alcohol and smoking are very much related to my crippling grief, and maybe you just showed me a glimpse of hope. This listener also shared that they are the mother of 2 other children, and that her hope is that she can be a good mom to them still, but she's consumed by that grief. And as I read that, not only did I have tears flowing down my face and goosebumps on my skin, chills up my spine, because I knew exactly this home culture, this feeling, this energy in their house. I knew the feeling of her kids having lost a sibling and then watching their mom struggling. All of these emotions came back to me, but then this fulfillment, this appreciation for what we are doing here with Magnify, what we're doing here with the content. Sometimes not super fun, sometimes very emotional, but it's making an impact. And I just want to send love to that listener. And I want to talk today, kind of part 2 to that grief and alcohol, grief coping mechanisms conversation, because like this listener, I also found that there really wasn't anything that connected grief and drinking. And for this listener, drinking and smoking. And my hope today is that we will be able to shift your perspective on life and death a little bit more, be able to give you some beliefs to hold on to that trump the belief of maybe what you've gotten from conditioned religion or what we believe about life and death of being physical beings, and that's about it. So today we're going to dive in. I know that I'm going to repeat some of the concepts that I brought up in that original episode. Feel free to go back to that one, listen to this one again and again, because it's the repetition of these beliefs that will allow your subconscious emotional mind to say, maybe I can believe in something beautiful about what's happened in my life. And as we're going through this, I want to kind of highlight a main theme. This will be a main theme in this week's episode as well as next week's episode, and that is that trauma is not what happens to me, but what happens inside of me. It's not what happens to me, because if that were true, I can't change it. I can't go back. I can't rewind the calendar. I can't go back in time. It's what happens inside of me and what I make it mean about me, which, wow, that means that I can change. I can shift my perspective. I can change what that means about me, what that means about my life, and how I make that make me feel. So I want to start off with this heavy, deep topic by kind of shedding light on a concept that allowed me to break free from my interpretation of grief. I want to recap a little bit. This is not coming from somebody who doesn't know anything about it. I actually endured so much grief that at one point I said, if I'm going to live with this much grief and make my life meaningful and forge forward and find some sort of happiness, I better get really comfortable with grief. I lost my brother when I was 12. That was very traumatizing. I was home alone with him. Then I lost my grandparents. My grandparents were my parents. When my dad was deployed, my mom's alcohol addiction was too intense. My grandparents took us in. They raised us. My grandfather was my second dad. My 2 grandmothers, they were the women that taught me what being a woman was all about. My paternal grandfather passed away before I was born, so I was actually brought up with a lot of healthy perspectives, luckily, from my paternal grandmother on grief and loss. So I think a part of my life is like, you were trained for this. Your experiences led you to being so frustrated by grief that eventually you figured out what you wanted and you figured out how to look at it through a positive lens. My grandparents passed away. Probably the most painful one that I endured was my dad, my confidant, my best friend, the one who I could lean on, who really understood my pain of finding my brother and had these long, drawn-out, heartfelt conversations about what life and death was. Why did Eric have to go? Why was it me that had to find him? He really had all of these beautiful conversations with me. And when I was 28, he was killed on his motorcycle. And he was just sitting at a stoplight, minding his own business, and a car came through the intersection and struck him. And I remember dropping to my knees and saying, this is more painful than any of the deaths I've experienced. When I was 31, my mom passed away of health-related issues due to alcohol addiction. She was malnourished. She was about my height, 90 pounds. So I'm 5'7". She was 90 pounds. She didn't eat. She had cirrhosis of the liver. She had scares with throat cancer, mouth cancer, all of these different things. That death was kind of anticipated. I kind of say that I lost my mom when I was 5 when she started drinking, but then it happened at 31 after I had kind of cut her out of my life. And so I dealt with a lot of regret of not forgiving her when I had time, not helping her in a way that I could have. At that point, I was already running Magnify, operating, having coaching clients. And I would say, what if I could have put her through some of my programs? What if I could have had conversations with her about forming a new self-image, setting goals, things outside of drinking, this grief processing context that I am speaking about now about her son. And I was never able to do that. And so I've dealt with a lot of different types of grief and a lot of different types of loss where, again, I've had to say, if I'm going to live with this grief, I need to figure out how the heck to perceive it differently. Because the way I was perceiving it, let me tell you, I remember so many vivid memories of this idea stopping me in my tracks, where I'd kind of look up in frustration and agony and pain in my body from the heartache. And I would say, why did God give me this life? Why did I get dealt this hand of cards? Woe is me, the world is against me. I must be meant for pain and agony and torture. And guess what? That perpetuated my drinking, 1,000%. And I would imagine, joking aside, that that's the same experience that this listener is going through. And so I want to offer up perspective shifts, challenging beliefs, so that this listener, as well as anybody else that resonates, finds comfort, finds a little bit of a lighter energy to carry forward without needing to escape. So what I want to start with is breaking the perspective that we are just physical beings. I know that the Bible kind of taught me this growing up as a Methodist, in the Methodist family, going to church occasionally. There were themes about, spirits, and when we pass, we're eternal life, we go up to heaven, but I didn't really know what that meant. I didn't really understand that. And I needed to look at a way that meshed spiritual belief with science. And this is where I found some very beautiful philosophies. And I'll mention some authors, some speakers towards the end of this episode that I encourage you to study, to reach out to me for accountability to study alongside of me. Because I still listen to this stuff every day. It's like my own little therapy when I'm missing my family members. But one of the main concepts is that we are not our physical bodies. We are conditioned to believe that. We are conditioned to go off of things that we can touch and feel and see and hear and smell. And my family member is alive because I can hold them and I can hug them. And they're dead when that vessel is cremated or 6 feet under. And then I can never connect with them again. And for me, it was this idea of my family members are far, far, far away in heaven. If they're this eternal life, they're far, far away in heaven. Or what I was taught about my brother, because he committed suicide. So many people, I urge you, if you ever come into contact with somebody who has experienced suicide in their family, do not say this to them. But I had a lot of people in my life, including my own stepfather, that told us, he will pray for my brother's soul who is damned to hell because he took his own life. And that was my belief system. Physicality and then the aspect of spirituality means that they're far, far away somewhere, that I can't reach them, I can't touch them, I never be connected to them again. But there is this other realm of, I would say, literature, philosophy, concepts that introduced this idea to me that We are not our physical body. We are primarily spirit, aka energy. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply moves into form and back out of form again. So, upon birth, our energy, our spiritual energy, non-physical energy, moves into this beautiful vessel, and we celebrate that as our birthday. But then we are not taught or conditioned to be comfortable or normalize the idea of death not being something sad all the time, not being something tragic, but rather a natural flow of energy where energy leaves the vessel but is not destroyed. It's also not terribly far away in heaven or hell. Energy is 100% evenly present in all places at all times. When I heard this, again, lots of tears came out of my eyes. It was like this visceral epiphany. It almost felt like I knew that somewhere deep in my non-physical energy spirit. My soul knew that, but I needed the external validation of people like Bob Proctor speaking about this, Napoleon Hill, Andrew Carnegie. We'll go with other influences as well. Like I said, different self-study material at the end of the episode. But when I started to hear this common theme amongst all of these wise teachers, philosophers, lecturers, new thought leaders, it was like my soul knew it already, but I needed that confirmation because everything I heard outside of that was so damning. It was so permanent. I will never see them again. And I did things wrong and I wasted time with them. I'll never have an opportunity to speak to them again or hug them again. And then I started to hear about this. Energy is neither created nor destroyed. It simply moves into form and out of form again. And when I started to recognize that I could still connect with that energy, I started to actually feel them around me. I shared this on the part 1 of the grief and alcohol episode, but I want to reiterate this experience that I have now so often because I actually feel comfortable with it. I invite it in. Have you ever had that experience if you've lost a loved one where you feel like you have an idea, a thought, something hits you, and in your soul, you think, oh, I can call my dad and tell them that. And then you immediately have that after effect, the punch in the gut of, my dad's gone. I can't call them. Or, I'm so excited to tell my brother or my son this thing. Oh, and then you sink in grief and sadness because the way that we've been taught is that because we cannot see them or feel them physically, we cannot talk to them. Have you ever had that experience? It happens to me quite often. Well, what is actually happening? Remember, energy is neither created nor destroyed. That energy is on a frequency. Your father, your mother, your son, your daughter, your spouse, whoever it is that you are missing, their energy is on a frequency. And when you have that feeling, like you could literally pick up the phone and talk to them because you forgot that they're gone, it's not that you forgot that they're gone, it's that you actually connected with them on that frequency. And that line of communication is open. And that's the invitation, that feeling of excitement and anticipation to communicate with them is the open line of communication. They're tapping into you just like you're tapping into them, and you're on the same frequency. But our conscious mind being taught that death means sadness and loss is what brings us back to that low frequency of, well, I can't talk to them. I've been training myself because it is a conditioned paradigm. If somebody is gone, dead, then their energy is gone. I can't talk to them. That sadness happens. That's a paradigm. That's a belief system that jolts you out of that experience of actually being able to connect with them. So I've been training myself. When I feel that, let it happen. Let it be. Speak out loud. Say, thank you, Dad. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Mom, for connecting with me. Because now I want to tell you. I want to feel that experience of telling you what happened at work today, or telling you about my promotion, telling you about the kids' graduation, telling you about the birth of my new child. I want to tell you all of these things. And now I believe that that line of communication is open. The more I do that, the more often I feel that connection, and I am overwhelmed with the physical feeling that they are sitting next to me, that they are literally right there with me. And what happens, the more I do that and allow that to happen without saying, well, no, they're not here. I can never call them. The life is so hard. I know that sounds like I'm mocking it, but that was my experience for so many years. But the more I allow that communication to happen, the more they communicate with me without me even trying. This is funny. Literally today, an hour ago, as I'm getting ready to come here to the studio, prepping my notes, prepping my thoughts, getting ready to record, we have the TV on in the living room, and usually it's on this doggy TV for our dogs to listen to like good vibes and just be calm and anxiety free. But for some reason, my husband left it on regular cable TV today. For some reason, who knows, some reason, right? And right as I'm closing my laptop and I've been thinking about the loss that I've had, and I'm thinking about how much I love the people that they aren't physically here, but they are here spiritually. They are here non-physically, energetically. They are here. All of a sudden, I hear the song Moon River from Breakfast at Tiffany's come on. That is significant to me because that is the only movie that involved alcohol and cigarettes that my grandparents would literally watch with me. They would let me watch that. My grandma Gail and I would watch it together. She taught me all about Audrey Hepburn. I love Audrey Hepburn so much to the point that my mom and my dad, they would separately buy me all of this Audrey Hepburn memorabilia, collectibles throughout my teenage years. My grandma taught me to play some of the chords or keys from Moon River on the piano. Like, this movie had so much significance in my life. My dad bought me this beautiful book that had all of these Audrey Hepburn portraits in it, and like they were like recopies of letters and things. I don't know what you call them, but they were photocopied letters of hers that she wrote, and all of this history. He bought me this huge portrait that I still have in one of my rooms, Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn was just like somebody that my family knew I loved, so they would always gift me with Audrey Hepburn shit, right? All of a sudden, out of all of the things that could come on TV, Audrey Hepburn, Breakfast at Tiffany's. Hey, Dad. Hey, Grandma. Hey, Mom. Hey, everybody. Not to mention that movie meant a lot to me because a lot of the storyline was about her character, Holly Golightly, loving her brother and then dealing with her brother's death. So that's really what drew me and had me gravitating towards that movie in general. So also, Hey Brother, it reminded me of Eric. Out of all the movies that could come on TV, and the fact that it was on regular cable instead of YouTube, why is that? That could be a coincidence. But saying that it's a coincidence, that doesn't make me feel good. Believing that it was a sign, that it was a line of communication, a non-physical hand out to say, hey, we're here. We love you. We support you in your venture to help people become comfortable with grief and loss and still love the people around them and still love their own life. Our hat's off to you. Keep doing you, Maggie. And that's what I got from that. And then I get in my car and I put Shuffle Station on Pandora. Guess what music played the whole way here? All of my dad's songs, the songs that we listened together in the car, songs that when we went to Puerto Rico to visit him, Eric and I, my brother, before Eric's death, we would drive around the island. My dad would take us on all these excursions and going to the mountains, going to the beach, all of these different things. We would listen to Jackson Browne. We would listen to Matchbox 20. We would listen to Bob Seger, Bruce Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac. Belladonna was the first song that came on, and it's about feeling. Guess what? Feeling is conscious awareness of vibration. Vibration is on a frequency. Our loved ones are on a frequency. Isn't it funny that that was the song that came on and that was the message that my dad was telling me? We're here. We feel you. We hope you feel us. Go do it, Mag. Go be your best self and help others feel good too. If you are struggling with grief and loss, and every time the thought of a loved one comes up, you interpret it as sad, as heartbreaking. First off, there's nothing wrong with you. I've been there. I have lived that day after day. But the more you interpret it that way, the less likely your loved ones will want to come connect with you. They will say, well, every time I connect on the right frequency or the right vibration with mom or dad there on earth, they cry and they get sad or angry, so they won't want to. I know I never had these experiences while I was drinking. I never had these experiences when I was feeling depressed because they didn't want to make me feel more depressed. So I encourage you, when you have those moments of, I can talk to them, I can call them. Those are physical, human experiences that our mind is conditioned to. But your mind can hook up to frequencies, which is like the non-physical telephone. And the more that happens and you interpret it as a good thing and you say, thank you, son, thank you, daughter, thank you, mom, thank you, dad, the more you're going to feel them all around you. And the more signs they are going to give you that they are here with you, because they are. Now, I want to go back to that thought that I had when I was still drinking and I was very much in the victim mindset of, why did God give me this life, this mother? Why did God put me in the house with Eric when he did that? Why did he take Eric from us? Why did God give me an alcoholic mom? All of these thoughts of like, why did I end up with this? I want to challenge that perception if that is you as well. Maybe you are thinking, why did God take my son? Why did God take my father or my mother or give me these circumstances where my mother or father couldn't be there for me, so I lost them energetically, but maybe they didn't die physically, but maybe you lost them through trauma as a child. All these different experiences, I want to pose something real wild. Maybe you've heard of this concept, but I found this in books. I've found this in speakers, in a lot of different religious texts. In some way or another, they hint at this process as spirits before we are born. We look at our life, we look at our potential lives, and we choose our own parents. And in choosing our own parents, we also choose our life experiences before we ever enter our physical body on our birth date. This means that your children also choose you as the parent. What did this make me feel? Well, at first I was like, that can't be real, because who would choose an alcoholic mom? Who would choose these life circumstances? But here's the thing. Our non-physical spirit energy does not choose a life in order to be unstimulated, bored, just kind of even-keeled. It chooses a life in which there will be contrasting experiences that challenge us to expand and grow and learn things. And in this, I was like, well, I chose my mom, who became an alcoholic, what did I need to learn in this lifetime from having her as my mom? And it became really apparent that I chose my parents together because my dad was going to teach me so much beauty in life when my mom was teaching me about the pain and the agony that I was going to have to shape and use as a superpower. My dad was this polar opposite that was going to teach me the beautiful aspects of life and how to shape that as a superpower. I was choosing my own siblings. I was choosing the experiences because maybe my soul, my spirit wanted to feel what it would be like to lose my best friend, my brother, and carry on his legacy and help impact mental health in some way. Or maybe it was just for me to learn how to lose somebody but not lose myself in the process. Maybe it really wasn't about changing the world at all, but in fact, just about letting my spirit grow into a place where I didn't need anybody outside of me to make me feel complete. Maybe in past life experiences, my spirit and my soul clung on to other people to need to feel whole. And this life, it said, nope, I'm going to learn how to be whole on my own. If you are challenged and frustrated with this life and the circumstances, the hands that you've been dealt, understand that you chose them. Not in a negative way, not like, woe is me, I must be really trying to just bring myself down all the time, but you chose it in a positive way of, I'm going to go through things in order to learn something, and it's going to propel me forward. And that contrast of not the good things, but the things I don't want is actually going to bring me to the realization of what I do want, because we don't know what we want until we experience enough of what we don't want. And what I didn't want any longer was for me to be manifesting the same behavior as my mom from the same grief and loss from Eric, my brother. I learned that there needed to be another way to look at this, to shape it. And that didn't look like thinking that he went to hell. That looked like believing he was healthy all around me. And in the vein of talking about people taking their life and the things that I was told that really perpetuated my drinking, believing that he was damned to hell, in a lot of these same spiritual talks that say we choose our own parents, we choose our own life experiences, a lot of those same teachers say that every death is a suicide. Some are just more direct about it. Every death is a suicide. We die when we're ready. We might not consciously be aware of that because that's the human experience, but the non-human, the non-physical, spiritual experience is understanding that death is a part of life, and at some point we're going to have to go. We're going to have to, quote unquote, expire. When we've learned everything that this life has to offer, we cross over, we sign off on our spiritual contracts, and we say, yep, that's what I've learned. I achieved this. My next life, I still need to achieve this. I did not learn this yet. And it repeats. And something that was also very beautiful in that gave me freedom from thinking Eric ended up somewhere very sad and dark and scary, that I would never, ever see him again. There's this thought within that same vein of, we have spiritual contracts with the same 5 to 10 people. So in one lifetime, the mom and the dad and the kids will all be a family unit. But then as everybody passes into non-physical energy, they all group up again. And somebody who I'm going to reference is Abraham Hicks, says then they have this little conference and they say, now you be the mom and you be the dad and you be the brother and I'll be the son and I'll be the sister. And we all kind of switch roles. But we travel together throughout our lifetimes because we all know that we are grouped together to learn things together. This helped me see, you know what? I'm going to be brought back together with my dad and my mom and my siblings one day. And my husband probably, because we've got soul contracts together. We chose this life together. And maybe that's why sometimes I felt like the mom. Maybe I was the mom in the past life. Who knows? I'm not going to know until it's my time to leave this vessel that I have, that my non-physical energy has harnessed. One day I will expire. And I know that about life. I know that when I look around at my friends that I love and my family members that are still here, I know that I need to cherish this because I've experienced the realness of loss, that everybody has an expiration date. We don't know when it is, but everybody's going to leave. Everybody's going to pass over into non-physical energy. So I need to cherish that moment now with them. And to anybody that's experiencing loss and they're like, well, what's the point of shifting my perspective into this? Well, I think part of the human experience is testing us. Do we let loss mean that we can't enjoy life anymore? Do we let loss mean that there is no point to love the children we still have here, or love the parent that we do still have here, or the friends that we still have here, to love ourselves? If losing one important person in your life means that you cast out everybody else that's important, I think that means we failed at learning the value of life and the value of loss. Everything that we experience, even the things that we frame as negative, they're meant to teach us things. They are positives if we can look at them that way. So remember, instead of thinking, why have I been dealt this hand? Think, what did my spirit want to learn? What did my soul want to expand in this lifetime? And remember that they're always here, always around you. And there will be sometimes painful physical feeling of heartbreak, your chest tightening, your stomach tightening, loss of appetite, loss of sleep. Those things are natural, especially in the beginning. But if you keep looking at what's missing from your life, you're going to extend that time that feeling, that physical feeling is in your life. If you continue to dwell in the area of, I don't have this person anymore, then your entire life has now been given over to the lack of that person being there, instead of being able to harness the energy and the lesson learned of life is short. I need to make the most of my time while I'm here, the most of my loved ones around me, the most of all of this physical feeling that I miss from being able to hug my dad. Well, that means I need to go hug my stepmom as much as possible. I need to hug my oldest brother, Jake, as much as possible, my nieces and my nephews, my in-laws, my husband, my dogs. I want to literally smell them and feel them as much as possible instead of isolating and sitting on the couch or casting aside the people that call me and want to love on me. If I'm so focused on, no, I've lost somebody, I'm very sad today, I can't handle talking to you. Well, that's basically saying, I don't want to learn the lesson of loss, so you're going to be sacrificing your entire life to that feeling. You are going to be giving up any happiness, any joy that you can take with you. So again, it's not about what happens to you, but what happens inside of you. If you make that loss mean, my life is meaningless, I'm a horrible mom, I'm a horrible dad, I'm a horrible son or daughter, you're going to believe that and manifest that into your life. You are going to create those life circumstances that affirm that. You are going to isolate, you're going to self-sabotage, and you're not going to be doing the one thing that our source energy or God or whatever you might believe in, the one thing that he, she, it wants us to do is embrace life and love. You're going to be spitting in the face of source energy and saying, I'm not grateful for anything I have because I'm so focused on what I've lost. Be grateful for what you have because you've experienced loss, because you know what it feels like for the hugs to not be available, the conversations where you can hear their vocality, where you can hear their resonance feel their own vibration physically. You know what it feels like to lose somebody. So don't spite that opportunity to love who's still here. And when it comes to drinking and the self-sabotage, the smoking, understand that those are just symptoms of believing the wrong things. If you believe, especially a family member has taken their own life, it's one of the hardest to handle, to understand, to wrap your head around. And I don't think that there's ever a time that a human in their physical form will wrap their head around it. It's when we are done and we move out of form and we're all signing off on our spiritual contracts, that's when we find out what was that meant for. It wasn't your fault. Don't ever believe that you could do anything different. It was not your responsibility. That was your family member, your loved one's contract. That was their experience meant for them. And you were alongside to learn something for the best. I shared this in the part 1 of the grief and loss and alcohol episode, but I want to recap on this. I remember reading a passage in Chicken Soup for the Soul. It was Chicken Soup for the Young Soul. And it was a book, one of the series that was specifically geared towards grief and loss. And there was a story in there about a mother who lost a son to suicide. This mother lost her son passed away, and he had a yellow Mustang that he loved so much. The son's name was Mike. I remember his name was Mike, and he had a yellow Mustang. And in the wake of his passing, his mother found strength and found purpose and meaning to create the Yellow Ribbon Society, which was a suicide awareness, suicide prevention nonprofit organization. And I read that when I was 14, maybe even 13. My brother passed away when I was 12, and my dad did a really great job of buying me these books to help me kind of understand. But I remember being angry reading that passage and being like, why does that mom do something good with her experience of losing a son and make it mean something purposeful and fulfilling and passionate, whereas my mom isolated and cut out her other 2 kids and drank, basically over time, drank herself to death over it? Why did that mom do one thing and the other mom did something else? Well, it was because maybe not a conscious choice, but an ability to make an emotional choice that they weren't going to let that choice of their son, not of them, they were not responsible, their son did that, the way they were able to frame that in their own experience. And so I challenge you to be like the mom in that story. It doesn't mean you have to start a nonprofit, but maybe you get involved in something that just makes you feel like you're making an impact in any way, shape, or form. Use your story, use your experiences to shape something powerful rather than to shape something that is infused with alcohol and smoking. That's your coping mechanism for the pain. But shift that pain, shift that narrative of the pain, that life is short, you will be reconnected, you're even reconnected day to day, but eventually you are going to be joined back together with everyone that you've lost. You will come back together. It will all make sense. But in the huge span of time of humanity, your life is just a blimp, just a pin mark in the timeline. It feels like years and years and years and years and years that we're going to go without this person, but it's really just a blink of an eye. So time is precious, and make your time here mean something. They don't want to watch you suffer. They don't want to watch you self-sabotage. They want to guide you, and they actually want to be your strong freaking guardian angels and help you achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve. Now I feel like it's part of my self-image that like I can do anything because I have like 8 guardian angels up there all helping pull strings for me. You have the same thing if you've lost somebody. They want to help you, just like source energy or God. They want to bring you everything that you've ever hoped and wished for. They just got to see you working for it. They got to see you visualizing it, getting on the frequency of your goals, and they're going to help you get there. So I know that this was a deep conversation. I hope it helped your heart feel a little bit lighter. And here's what I'm going to give you as the activity for this week. It's a little bit fluffy. I'm going to say that. A little bit woo-woo, but it works. I would never suggest something that doesn't work that I have not experienced. But here's the thing. These will only be words until you do it yourself and experience it for yourself. The activity for this week, and I challenge you to keep doing it until it works, because this is a skill that needs to be learned, and that takes practice. I want you to meditate and challenge your mind. Actually, don't challenge, relax your mind into the frequency that it takes to connect with your loved one. Because when you can do that every day, there will never be a need to escape from pain. In fact, you will feel full of love. And what I mean by this is find a quiet space in the morning. Anytime you feel that overwhelming sense of grief and sadness and heartbreak, take some time to feel it in your body. Close your eyes, perhaps put on some flow music from YouTube. Close your eyes and imagine lines across a black screen in your mind. Imagine that each line represents a frequency, and see one of these lines being where your loved one resides, towards the top of the screen, because you know they're high vibe. You know they're feeling good. You know that they're free of pain, free of sadness. They're on the other side, just playing, just having fun. See them on one of those top lines on the screen of your mind, and see yourself sitting next to them on that line, that frequency. What would you say to them? Would you hug them? Would you hold their hand? Would you ask them questions? What questions would you ask? Practice this exercise. 2 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, an hour a day. The more you do it, the better you get at it, the longer you'll want to spend here. I have beautiful conversations with my family. Nobody would really believe that, but I don't have to have everybody else believe it. The only person that it matters if they believe it is me. Because I have gotten answers to questions that could not have been provided from anybody outside of me. I did not come up with these answers from my own mind. I came up from the frequency that I tapped into, talking to my dad, talking to my mom, talking to my brother. And you can have that feeling too. It's more than just this intellectual knowledge that you gain from them. It's this feeling of togetherness again, when we've been taught that our loved ones are gone forever. Forever isn't a real thing. They're right here with you, and you can train your mind to meditate and surrender and relax and get on the frequency that they are on and have full-blown conversations. I know it sounds wacky, but give it a try. In addition to this exercise, I challenge you to study. Literally, you don't even have to buy a book. Just go on YouTube, because you can learn everything on YouTube nowadays. Look into Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks. Here's a little fun backstory. Esther Hicks will be the speaker. You'll hear a woman speaking. A lot of the videos are animated, but if you see one where it's actually her physically on stage, her eyes are closed. She's channeling her father, Abraham Hicks, the author. Abraham Hicks books are amazing. Read those too, but YouTube, Abraham Hicks, Do I Choose My Parents? YouTube, Dolores Cannon, Spiritual Contracts. YouTube, Bob Proctor, Everything is Energy. YouTube, The Law of Vibration, which dictates, again, everything is energy, everything is vibrating, energy moves into form, energy moves out of form, it never dies. Death is not a thing, except for what we've been taught about our physical form. So self-study, look into these aspects. Bashar, I believe I shared this resource on the first grief and loss episode. Bashar, he is a spirit channeled by Daryl Ankur. Anka. That is a very interesting speaker, philosophizer as well. Bashar, Bashar. Look up Bashar, grief and loss. Study these. Play them every day, anytime your heart is hurting. And you'll start to shift your beliefs so that that pain turns into motivation to live, motivation to stay in a high vibration so that you connect with your loved ones, motivation to make your story meaningful, and motivation to do something different than utilize alcohol or whatever you might be coping with. So, sending you lots of love, especially if this resonated on a deep level. Your heart is mending. You are capable of mending it. You are capable of feeling whole again. Let yourself be happy. You don't have to feel guilty that you're still here. You don't have to feel that pain and loss forever. Keep thinking different in order to drink different, or never again. Remember, it all goes down in the mind. I'm here for you if you want to study alongside in the Magnify course and community, in the Magnify VIP program. I'm here. The links are in the description. And let me know how this made your heart feel. I look forward to hearing from you. Lots of love. It means the entire world to me that you have been here with me, letting me share my experiences and hopefully helping open your eyes to a bright, beautiful life ahead of you as well. So if you are loving this show, please, please, please subscribe, like, comment, and especially share this with somebody that might be in need. Please help get the word out. Word of mouth is so important, and I know that you're somebody special who can help me in this mission for thinking differently in order to drink differently or never again. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions you want discussed on the podcast. I'm here for it, so I'll talk to you soon. Signing out, Magnify Maggie.